Good morning. My name is Councillor George Farquhar and I'm presiding over this subcommittee of the licensing on the 2nd of October 2025. The first order of business today, well, first of all, is to welcome members of our press and those which you may be viewing at home. First order of business is the election of the chair. I would ask for nominations.
If I may, Chair, I'd like to nominate Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. A seconder?
I'd like to second Councillor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howell. As the appointed chair, I'll now deal with the following items. Housekeeping. Could I ask the clerk to read out the points on the housekeeping notice, please?
Thank you, Chair. Please note this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of the building. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off mics and turning the volume down completely on laptops. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk. May I ask, are there any apologies for this particular meeting?
There are no apologies today.
Thank you once again. Declarations of interest. I have no declarations of interest. Councillor Matthews?
I have none, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Howell?
None, thank you.
Protocol for public speaking at meetings. The protocol for public speaking at meetings and a licensing subcommittee is included in the agenda sheet for noting. Application for Cameo Vale Road, Bournemouth, BH1 2JA. I will now ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. As I said before, I am Councillor George Farquhar and I'm the chair of this subcommittee meeting. Councillor Matthews.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Chris Matthews, I'm a member of the subcommittee this morning.
Councillor Howell.
Councillor Mark Howell, member of the subcommittee.
Just for noting, we also have some reserves with us in the room. This is a normal process in case there is somebody doesn't make an appearance. So we've had Councillor Stephen Bartlett actually join us today and Councillor Adrian Trapman-Law. They are reserve members and they will not be required, they will not participate as members of the hearing, but are here to observe for training purposes only. They will take no part in the hearing or the deliberations afterwards. On behalf of BCP Council, our licensing officer.
Sarah Rogers.
Thank you. And for legal?
Hello, I'm Linda Cole, advising the subcommittee today.
And our clerk today.
My name is Jill Hollyhoak. Thank you.
And for the applicants, I'm looking for a Piers Warren.
Good morning, Chair. Yes, I'm Piers Warren from TLT Solicitors.
A Mark Fear as designated premises supervisor.
Yes, good morning, Mark Fear, DPS of the venue.
And Jason Ash, the operations manager.
Yes, good morning, I'm Jason Ash, the operations manager.
I've received information that the objector, Vicky Moss, is not attending today. Before I run through the procedure, may I check that any persons that have given their notice of intention to speak have been identified, and if any person who is so identified wishes to withdraw their representation. I'm seeing no indications. The procedure that we'll use for today's hearing will be as follows. The licensing officer presents a report. There will be questions of the licensing officer by all parties. The members of the subcommittee shall go first. There will be then the applicant will make their application. There will be questions of the applicant by all parties. And once again, the subcommittee members will go first. Objectors will make their representations. Then there will be questions of those making their objections. Unfortunately, as I say, Vicky Moss is not here today. All parties will be given the opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with the legal advisor and the clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within a period of 5 working days, beginning on the day of the last day of the hearing is held. This notification of the decision will include information about any right of appeal, as appropriate. I will now ask all parties to confirm agreement for the proposed procedure and their representations. For the applicant,
Yes, we agree.
Ms Rogers,
Yes, thank you.
Ms Cole.
Yes, Chair.
May I please remind all members speaking, all parties speaking, not to repeat any information which is already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions to be asked through myself as the chair, and there will be no cross-examination of the parties. May I now call on Ms Rogers to present the report.
Thank you. An application has been made to vary the current premises licence to approve the new layout following refurbishment at the premises and add further conditions to uphold the licensing objectives. No changes have been requested to the current hours or authorised activities. In May 2025, a minor variation was made to address these changes to the layout, being the reduction in the licensed area and the location of a new entrance, which also resulted in the change of address. This application was refused as several representations were received from local residents expressing concern over noise and possible antisocial behaviour. With no opportunity to have a hearing with a minor variation, the applicant made this further full variation application, which also included additional conditions, which is the subject of consideration today. 5 representations were received from other persons. However, 1 was withdrawn yesterday, leaving the representations numbered 1 to 4 inclusive. No representations were received from any of the responsible authorities. Should this application be granted and the applicants fail to operate in accordance with the licence and any conditions attached to it, they will be aware that any of the responsible authorities or any other person may request a review of the licence at any time. Thank you.
Members of the subcommittee, do you have any questions of the licensing officer?
Not at this stage, Chair.
Councillor Howell?
No, thank you.
And from the applicant, do you have any questions of the licensing officer?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
I have no questions either. So can I call upon the applicant to make your presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. And you'll have seen I put forward a short submission with a couple of attached documents, which appears at your supplemental agenda. So effectively, I'll expand upon that and try not to repeat anything. I can see my face on the screen behind you, which always disconcerts me nowadays on these hearings. I'm thinking about getting a hair and makeup person for doing hearings, I think. I'll try and ignore myself. It's a horrible thing to say. The application has been set out. It's got 3 parts to it. I think if we split it up, it makes it a little bit easier. The first part are the internal layout changes, of which there are no representations raised. Likewise, the additional conditions that were agreed, as you've heard, between the minor variation and when that was refused at some meetings, and I'll touch upon that in a minute, and the full variation going in. Again, those promote the licensing objectives, so I submit there's no issue with those conditions. The real issue here, as you'll have noted, is the change of the layout to put the entrance where it is now on Glenfern Road from its previous location. This has come with a substantial decrease in capacity, as you've seen, for the premises, and that's because the landlord's taken back part of the premises at the back. So we've got a significantly smaller premises, and that required effectively the moving of this doorway. You'll know there's blocks of student flats going in. I think it's referenced in one of the representations. They're not built yet, but this is, if you like, the precursor for those works. The application, as I say, it's set out at page 11. Just for reference, the new plan is at page 39 and the old plan is at page 27. I don't necessarily need to take you to those because you can have a look at them in your leisure when you're deliberating. You can see the size of the reduction. You'll see where we're talking about. There is a new sound lobby, and new insulation has been installed as part of the refurbishment. You'll see on the lobby, it's a large lobby with double doors at the front and then sets of doors out. Those doors, you'll be pleased to hear, are then closed to make sure there is very little in the way of noise outbreak, and music is monitored by Mark and his team rigorously to ensure that the music doesn't cause a public nuisance from the premises. significant and proactive management at the premises. Mark has been associated with this premises for a very significant period of time. I don't want to embarrass him in terms of numbers of years, but he knows the building intimately. He knows the operation intimately. He's got a very strong, robust team there, and a very good door team that he's used for some considerable time. So they know what they're doing. They know how to manage this premises. Up to 25 staff on busy nights, and usually they run with 9 or more door staff if they know they're going to be busy. You'll know that there's a condition on the license at 3.1, that's on the current license, that requires door staff numbers to be risk assessed. That's what he does. And it usually works out a ratio of around 1 to 100. So you're looking at a very significant commitment in terms of door staff at the premises to manage ingress, any queuing, and then of course egress at the end of the night as well as any issues. We've included the queue management and dispersal plans with the submissions because obviously I think they're key to this, and you'll find those at the back of the supplemental bundle that we provided at pages 8 onwards. You'll see that actually, I won't take you through all those, but if you want to read them, there's requirements on complaints and what to do if people make complaints. There are issues in terms of turning down music. So gradually you try and encourage a gradual dispersal. All of that is best practice, and all of that is something that works very well at this premises. One of the representations you may have read talked about, how can we sort of try and manage things like queuing in terms of trying to get people in a more gradual way. Well, you'll be pleased to know that a ticketing system is used, so QR codes and digital phones, things that I frankly have never managed to get my head around using QR codes, but then I'm not the target audience for Cameo. But over 50% of customers tend to use the ticketing system. It encourages early arrival, so there's free entry before 11. There's tickets that mean you can only get in before 12, and then there's full passes. All of this is to encourage a staggered entry across a night. Current take-up is around 50% on any given night. On some nights where it's very busy, or at the moment we're in Freshers, I think it's called Freshers Fortnight. It was a week when I was a student. I mean, it's a fortnight nowadays, I think. In Freshers Fortnight, actually the take up on ticketing is pretty much 100%. And that allows a more gradual entrance. There is some queuing, which tends to be between about 11:30 and midnight, but that's managed proactively by the door staff, and you'll see the queue management policy there requires proactive management. This ticket system we expect usually is around 50% of customers use it. That is on an upward trend actually as people get used to it, and when people settle down, especially students, and get into their routines, they will use that kind of system if their preferred venue is ours. We usually open from about 10:30 in the evening, so this is very much a nighttime nightclub operation. It's not an all-day operation. It tends to operate the Wednesdays, Fridays and Saturdays. You'll know from the area Old Christchurch Road, and better than I, albeit I have represented other people on that road. It's a very, very busy road with bars, and a lot of nightlife goes on there. We've had 5 representations, you'll see from the papers. My understanding is 1 withdrew yesterday, so we're down to 4 representations. There is a map at page 29, which I think is very helpful here because it shows the in situ where we are compared to where the residents are in St Peter's Court. You can see Cameo is marked on there. Between St Peter's Court and Cameo is a car park, which is very well used, and I'll come on to that in a second, because it is actually key to this. What you'll also notice is that Glenfern Road, where it comes onto Old Christchurch Road, as you know, sort of is a bit of a rat run around there because Old Christchurch Road is partially now not used for through traffic. So lots of taxis actually come down Old Christchurch Road and turn left and then come past our premises effectively to turn around and come away again. So there's an awful lot of traffic there, as well as the traffic that uses the car park. Glenfern Road as well, I understand, is used quite regularly, sort of as a cut through by people who aren't necessarily coming to the premises but going on elsewhere as well. So there's an awful lot of traffic through that area, both footfall and from cars, and that goes on significantly later than we tend to open as well. And I'll give some examples in a second. So on Friday and Saturday nights, the car park is pretty much full. It is known as the place to park for people who are coming into town to Old Christchurch Road. Our customers tend to be students, so they tend to be on foot actually more than cars. But that car park is, and we can see this from CCTV, is used way later than we tend to open. It's a pickup point because obviously Old Christchurch Road is close to traffic. And indeed, you can see from Facebook posts, people offer lifts actually from that car park as a pickup point. So it is a very busy, if you like, little spot itself. We have seen, for instance, things like people playing music in cars. Only last night there was someone in a car playing music late. When that happens, we do try and notify the police, but obviously they're busy, and frankly, music in a car is not the most challenging thing they will deal with, but we do try and notify them on, and especially at weekends, on the 501 radio system that you'll know. There was a fight actually last night in the car park at 2 a.m. Just, this is for information as to what, sometimes people, if you're asleep in bed and you hear something and a commotion going on, you might expect it to be the club because that's the nearest premises. In fact, that was nothing to do with any customers from the premises, but our door team were able to intervene. They were able to move one group one way, one group the other way. So actually their presence there, we believe, promotes the licensing objectives because it does give eyes and ears on that area. So we can notify the police if there's antisocial behaviour, and we will intervene where there are issues immediately outside our premises, even if they're not associated with our premises at all. It's probably worth pointing out and observing as well that the reports from the residents, I think in the echo of a fight at 6 a.m. on the 27th of September, again, we'd closed that night at 3:15. Everyone had gone by 3:35. And indeed, the CCTV we saw showed a group sort of running through. You don't see the fight, but you see the group kind of running through. So again, the association with our doorway is just that, rather than necessarily a real reflection of what happens at the premises. I think the car park also was known as a hotspot for drugs and issues like that. But again, the extra eyes and door staff, we think probably helps promote better behaviour there. Now, we can't stop everything, obviously, but if you're going to do things like that, you don't want a load of door staff watching you who have radios and a link to the police. So if anything, we say that actually in the main, those extra eyes and ears are probably helpful, albeit we do appreciate, our queue isn't going to be silent, and dispersal is not always going to be silent, but we do all we can. You can see from our report, we give away lollipops, we manage the queue actively, we disperse people as quickly as we can. We do turn music down early to try and get a more gradual dispersal. And we don't, for instance, as some places would, take an arbitrary view that if no one's buying anything from your premises anymore, just chuck them all straight out. If there's 200 people in there, we'll keep going to try and allow for that more gradual dispersal, even if we're going to close early. We have had, indeed, only one complaint from St Peter's Court since we've opened with the door at the back. That was actually on an international student night. So was it Euro? Which student group was it?
It's the EF colleges.
EF.
Night.
Yeah, so you're aware EF College obviously have a big input into international students who come in and come into town. There was an evening at the venue. They were all escorted in, and then they're escorted away by their EF people. There was one complaint from St Peter's Court, and actually it caused a little confusion at the time because we couldn't quite identify where the issue was coming from, but we tried to assist where we could. But that's the only complaint we've actually had from St Peter's Court. No representations from the police or the responsible authorities you'll have seen. And indeed, paragraph 5 at page 14 of the report talks about the pre-application consultation exercise that we went through and the conditions that were agreed. So they were fully on board with what we were proposing to do, and no concerns were raised about the new entrance from Glenfern Road as you'll see from your report. I would remind you that paragraphs 2.1 and 9.12 of the guidance, this is more for your legal advisor, talk about the police and then the responsible authorities being experts in their fields, and for the committee to give significant weight to, or I submit need to give significant weight to their lack of concerns in the matter of this application. So finally, we've agreed some additional conditions. Some of them are more general in terms of the smoking area actually is at the rear of the premises. When you look at the plans, you'll see it's not really affecting this area. We're talking about the concerns of residents, but the queuing condition, meetings with local residents, phone numbers, dispersal, all of which go to promote the licensing objectives, specifically in relation to the concerns that were raised in the minor variation applications, which led to these conditions as direct results and then form part of the full variation. Chair, those are my comments. I hope I've helped in sort of elaborating on the points we made in our submissions. I'd invite any questions at this stage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warren. Any questions from subcommittee members?
Not from me, Chair, at this stage.
Councillor Howell.
Yes, you said you were a bit unclear as to what the actual operating hours were typically, using the word to tendency. So what are they typically?
So the premises license allows us to operate till 5 a.m. We tend to close around 3
to 3:30 a.m.
But we try and keep an open mind if there are, what we don't want to do is throw loads of people out. If the night is quieter by 2:30, we'll close them, but typically around 3:30. And as you'll have seen from the comments I made, actually, we were closed on the nights when there were the fights and incidents at 5 a.m. in the morning, at around that time.
Thank you. And Chair, is this appropriate time to ask the licensing officer a question, or is there a spot for that later on?
If it's relevant to the application that you've just heard.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there has been any independent verification as to whether any sound is being emitted from the club, because one of the representations has claimed that noise is actually coming from the club, music is coming from the club.
No, we haven't, but to assist, it may, from personal experience, I've visited the premises during the Purple Flag assessment evening, and we met with Mark at the entrance, and we were talking about the area with the Purple Flag assessors, and we invited them into the premises to have a look. And I was surprised as we entered, the music was really loud, but outside I couldn't hear anything. And I think that's credit to is it triple lobby doors there?
Correct, yes, triple lobby doors.
It was actually commented at the time that you wouldn't have known how loud it was inside. That was just my personal opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Just as a follow-up to that, Ms. Rogers, the entrance for the Purple Flag, was that at Vale Road or was it on the other one?
The new entrance, the Glen Fern Road.
Thank you. From that, a couple of questions for myself. Just on that one, there's a mention of triple, but when you were doing your application, then I got the impression that it was a double sound system.
Sorry, I said double doors. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Double doors.
Yeah. If we look at the plan, you can see that there are lobby doors across all the.
It's double doors, double doors, double doors.
Correct, yes, that's correct.
Understood.
Chair, could I just?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Could you just clarify how long the premises actually been trading with the current new entrants?
I think it opened May.
29th of April.
Sorry, 29th of April.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, if I may, Mr. Warren, so this doorway, will this be permanent from this moment forward, or is this a temporary measure?
No, this was part of a significant refurb that we had to undertake because of the landlord taking back the other part of the premises. So this is permanent with those doorways.
Thank you. So can I ask some questions of our DPS, Mr. Fear, and the Operations Manager, Mr. Ash? So there was mention in the application for the dealing with complaints. Would one of you talk me through how complaints received, such as we've heard there's been a complaint from St. Peter's Court? Talk me through the process, how that's actually dealt with, either at the time and as a follow-up, please.
Any complaint would be dealt with at the time as best we can to deal with whatever issue was raised at that time, whether it be somebody shouting in the street or whether it be music noise or anything like that. We can deal with it immediately, we will deal with it. Outside of that, any complaints to the venue will be escalated to Jason, who's my operations manager, and then we will formulate a plan on how we can best tackle that complaint and deal with the issue.
So, Mr. Ash, was this complaint forwarded to you? And if so, what actions did you take?
Yeah, I was notified at the time about the complaint. There was some confusion around it because it came at a time when the premises was actually closing. I think the complaint was around a late night disturbance. Yeah, the venue trading for the under 18s, what is EF College, was at an earlier finish. So there was some confusion around it, but we ensured that we had the right number of security on for those sessions, and we made sure that we put a point in place to make sure the dispersal of those sessions were carried out in the right way and the doors were closed, in which we were satisfied they were taking place.
May I press you, Mr. Ash,
Sure.
as regards what feedback was given to the complainant?
That would have been back with the team at the time, but I don't think any contact details were left.
No contact details were made from the were left from the complainee. He was quite irate at the time. My colleague dealt with him. I was on annual leave at the time. I think we tried to calm him down as best we can, but we were closing at that time, so EF were taking their students away. So it was approximately 10:30 at night, and we were just closing up. So
how was the complaint received? Was it by telephone, in person?
it was in person.
It was in person.
It was in person, yes. And my deputy manager dealt with it and dealt with it professionally.
Okay, okay. So I just want to, and I really appreciate Mr. Warren the attention to the objections that were received. One of the objections, and I'm just going to read it out because unfortunately Miss Moss is not here, was that, just for an extract, approving this application would place vulnerable residents at risk of increased exposure to antisocial behaviour and crime, including shouting, fighting, drug-related activity, theft, loud music, revving of vehicles, and other disruptive incidents that already occur in the vicinity. Now, obviously, a lot of that has already been presented in your presentation, Mr. Warren, as regards the use of the car park and things which are within your control. And I really appreciate the fact that you will actually uphold and promote the licensing objectives by actually having your teams intercede where they can and where it's appropriate. Would the DPS give us an example where you've had to intercede before, please? Either at this entrance or at the previous entrance?
Obviously, we patrol our immediate vicinity of our venue because it's obviously we need to promote and uphold the licensing objectives. So many different. If you look at Glenfern Road now, it's used much more as a cut through to Old Christchurch Road from the Mary Shelley. So it's quite a busy thoroughfare now on foot with people that are going out at night and using the rest of the town. So a lot of people will pass my front door, not coming into my venue, but going into town. Previously, they would use Furvale Road, but if you look at Furvale Road now, there's no street lighting on there. It's a very oppressive area, so people will generally cut up through Glenfern Road, and it's a quicker route to Old Christchurch Road in all reality. So in recent times, you know, we've dealt with a girl that was walking through. She passed out. We employ a medic whenever we trade. We have a full-time medic with us, paramedic trained medic. We will deploy that medic to assist that person, obviously, because we want to ensure the safety of the town and uphold the licensing objectives. And you know, obviously, we want people to be safe and sound in the town. Equally, if you look at any minor scuffles or fights that are attaining around my venue, from my venue, or just in the street, we will try and intervene. and move people on, because that's the right and proper thing to do. If I assess it and I feel that we shouldn't be intervening because it's really out of our remit or out of our scope, we will call the police by the use of the 501 radio. And I have to say, if you look at the weekends now, Friday and Saturday night, with Operation Nightjar, we generally tend to have police very close to us or around us on Glenfern Road, which in turn then disperses people and promotes law and order in that area.
I think the example, Chair, if you don't mind, I gave from last night is a prime example. You know, it's 2 a.m. the door team intervening in a fight which was not anything to do with the premises, and their door staff were able to actually separate the group, send one down Glenfern Road one way and one group the other way, which had they have not been there, these things can escalate into quite significant incidents and quite major incidents, which can then spread into the car park, you know, into the area. So that kind of intervention, I think, is a very clear example of how we promote the objectives on that area.
Absolutely, Mr. Warren, I agree with that. So coming back to St. Peter's Court, what steps have been put in place to alleviate or give access for them to raise any complaints rather than turning up in person? Not saying that the person that complained before was from St. Peter's Court, but just simply to identify that there's been a fair number of objections that have come from residents at that location, concerned for the reasons which I've laid out.
I think there's 12 flats in St. Peter's Court, from what I understand from the representations I've read here. One of the representations refers to 12 flats, and one of them refers to the councillor who notified them of the application to make sure that they all had a voice and a coffee morning, etc. So they've all had very good opportunity, and we're pleased to see that they've engaged in this process. We knew there were some concerns, obviously, with the minor variation, which is why we agreed the conditions we did, which includes meetings with local residents, should they wish. That's one of the conditions we've offered. And a phone number, so a direct phone number, because one would not expect someone to get out of bed, put their slippers and dressing gown on, I'm not denigrating anyone, but, you know, and then come out and you know, to remonstrate with door staff or a manager on the door. So we happily have that phone number. If anyone was to phone the premises now on a trading night, so the premises number, that actually goes to mobile phone numbers anyway. It's always diverted to mobile phone numbers, so someone will answer it. We don't want that situation where, as an experienced committee, no doubt you'll have heard of the phone ringing and ringing and ringing and no one answering. So that simply doesn't happen. But those are now codified as conditions, and we would invite anyone who has any issues to do so. You know, if it is music from a car or music from another premises, you'll have seen that actually that can be heard around at times, and smoking areas that sort of face onto the area. We can at least notify them of where we think the issues are. If it's a car or whatever, we can use the 501 radio. If it's antisocial behaviour, you know, those public toilets are locked at night, the ones in the car park, but unfortunately people still, I suppose they think they're there, or they're in the car park arriving, nothing to do with our premises, but we'll use the area. Sadly, people are just a bit, well, let's not denigrate anyone who's not here, but any kind of antisocial behaviour like that's pretty abhorrent. But if we see, or if we're informed of that, we can obviously try and notify people as necessary. We have CCTV on the back as well, which is a really useful tool. So if there are issues, we can provide the CCTV to the police. So there is a lot we can do to help residents if they call us. As I say, they haven't yet, but we would invite anyone to do so. And certainly if people are watching on the live cast who are in St. Peter's Court, if they have any issues, to call.
Thank you. So there's two follow-up questions to that, Mr. Warren. So you say that they have this mobile number. To your understanding, how is that disputed and displayed in St. Peter's Court? Because my understanding, the demographic there is of an older demographic.
Chair, the number for the actual premise, the venue, which can be found online, will divert to our phones. So the landline number diverts to all our mobile phones. So we can distribute that number to St. Peter's Court, no problem at all, or it can be found online.
I appreciate that, but again, the point which I'm trying to make, Mr. Fear, is that it's an older generation that's in that location. So I think perhaps the number published in the shared in the shared areas within that particular location might be an idea to go that stage further. I also ask a follow-up question: should you receive complaints from St Peter's Court, Mr. Ash? What sort of feedback would be given to those complainants? Obviously, we've talked about the fact that they'll be dealt with, but would these complaints be actually logged in some way, and what follow-up action would be taken from yourself as the operation manager?
So, for example, if there is a complaint comes through tomorrow, we have a digital reporting system for any incidents. They include, any incidents of fights or licensing matters, but it also includes any complaints as well. So, incidents have to be recorded on the day or during the trading session. So, for example, if there was a complaint received on a Friday evening, Mark would have to fill in a report on a platform called Navitas. This would then send me a notification immediately, so I would pick that up at the time or first thing in the morning. It's also repeated by Mercury, who cover this platform for us in a summary the next day as well, which goes to myself and the operations director. Additionally, the follow-up for me, be part of that would be challenge Mark on what actions were taken, what we've done about it, to ensure that he's done everything he can to resolve any issues that took place and follow up with me in writing as to what happened.
Understood. May I press you just a little bit further then? Should you receive a future complaint from St Peter's Court, I'm happy with the process of actually dealing with it and making sure that's within the legislation and promoting the licensing objectives. What reassurance would you give the ward councillor who's been approached by the residents of St Peter's Court as regards their complaints would be acknowledged and heard and actually followed up on, please?
Well, I think the first instance we've encouraged Mark, and I think we said it in what we submitted as well, is to ensure we have direct dialogue with representations from St Peter's Court. And if we're meeting, say, I think it was a minimum of a monthly, we will make ourselves available to meet with the group. So we could either meet with them on a monthly basis, just to address any general concerns, any small and minor issues that we can address as they come forward. But obviously anything that's major and immediate, Mark would need to liaise with that person immediately and update with me as to what's happened. And if it's not resolved, then escalates to what we can do about it.
Mr. Warren, I see you're itching.
I always can't help but interject. So the condition that we've offered requires us, at the request of a ward councillor or local resident, to meet with them. So actually, it's at their instigation. You know, if they want us, they can get us, and we're more than happy, to work with any parties. Their longevity at the premises without review, I think, probably speaks volumes as to their commitment to Bournemouth and to this premises.
Absolutely, very reassuring. Thank you very much for that. Any further questions prompted by the subcommittee members? Any questions from yourself, Ms. Rogers? Any questions from legal? No? Okay. So from the objectors, then obviously they're not here, but I did read out a small part, and I'm very pleased that you took the opportunity to address that, even though it wasn't a formal question. So we're now on the stage whereby we're going to sum up. So, Mr. Warren, anything which you've not covered already, which you wish to sum up with?
To be a very short summing up, just very quickly, very pleased to hear about the purple flag comments and noise outside. So that should give you some reassurance there. The fact that police and environmental protection were supportive of this application again should give some comfort. I would remind the committee, obviously, in terms of questions about hours, we do have till 5 a.m. We don't necessarily trade all those hours, but just so it's been said on the record, this isn't a review application, and no one's asked, there's been comments about the hours, but I'd submit this isn't the place to consider those hours as part of this application. I'm sure you wouldn't, but I just would feel terrible if something was done and I hadn't raised it beforehand. We think this is a very positive application in terms of promoting the licensing objectives, and we hope we've given you some comfort today with what is very clearly a very proactive operations team and a proactive senior team that oversees that. So I would ask you respectfully to grant the application as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warren. Ms. Rogers, any summing up from you?
No, thank you.
Right. So with that in mind, I will now conclude this hearing. At the end of this meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and the clerk to deliberate. The decision will be conveyed to you in writing, as explained earlier. And if I could call upon Ms. Gold for any right of appeal, if that's all right.
Yes, yes, Chair. There will be a right of appeal through the decision that's made today. That appeal should be made within 21 days of formal notification, and any appeal in this area will go to Dorset Magistrates Court. All the details will be on the decision letter.
So may I just thank everybody for attending, and thank everybody online and members of our press. And thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it. Goodbye.